You know, you can be all the things you've always wanted to be. Beautiful, sexy, easy as 1, 2, 3. Just let your soul glow. Just let it shine through. Just let your soul glow, baby. Feeling oh so silky smooth. Just let it shine through. Just let your soul
All right. Hi, everybody. It's the Dystopian Dance Party podcast with Zach and Callie, and it is June 1st, or it will be when we upload this, and you know what that means if you have been listening to our podcast or reading our blog. And if you haven't, just pretend. It's Jheri Curl June, which is my favorite time of year. It's the one time that I actually contribute to the blog on a daily basis.
It's the only time I ever contribute to the blog. Ever.
And we've been doing this this is our 5th year doing this. And we've been toiling in obscurity for 5 years now. And I just really fucking want
continue to be in obscurity after.
Oh yeah, no, this will change nothing. But I really want to make. I want Jheri Curl music to become a thing. I think it's as vital a strain of music as, and I'm not throwing yacht rock under the bus, but yacht rock. I think Jheri Curl music is as important to the fabric of our society as yacht rock is.
I agree.
We just don't have the promotional muscle behind us,
right?
So,
or money, or friends to record a web series, or talent. Yeah. Actually, this was the podcast that I was like, okay, so I never prepare, so I was like, okay, so I really want to do this episode. Let's write stuff, and we'll look up things and actually do research and write it down. I didn't do shit, so I'm going into this completely blind. And
I'm going. Callie is actually more prepared than I am. This is a Dystopian Dance Party first, but again, we've been living, breathing Jheri Curl music for the last 5 years, and actually for longer than that, because we didn't. Well, let's talk about the history of Jheri Curl June, because that's what people are here for. So I don't remember exactly when we started calling Jheri Curl music Jheri Curl.
Me. Okay, yeah. Well, I don't remember Jheri Curl music, but I remember Jheri Curl June. Mm-hmm. So Jheri Curl June started with I've had so many fucking Tumblrs. I think it was my first or second Tumblr. I just started the Jheri Curl June, so we must have been saying Jheri Curl music before that.
Yeah.
So I maintain that I coined the term Jheri Curl June.
You definitely did.
I did not coin Jheri Curl music per se, but I definitely started the concept of June being the holy month of Jheri Curl music, and every day posting a different video and talking about it. So on my first blog, I did only 2 days because I'm fucking lazy. I don't ever stick to any projects. And the first one was a Jesse Johnson song. That's all I remember. And then I promptly stopped doing it.
Yeah. So you definitely, Jheri Curl June was definitely you. And then I think it was probably around the same time that I started doing Dystopian Dance Party, and we were just kind of like, we just decided to absorb the two together. If I was gonna make a wild guess about when Jheri Curl music originated, I think it was just kind of like around the time that we both started listening to Prince a lot. And, from Prince, it's like you start listening to Michael Jackson and Rick James. And I just remember there being some summers in there where we would make like playlists, MP3 playlists, and it would be, shit from 1999 and Thriller and, just that early 80s R&B sound.
Yeah,
and
I remember playing, what was that stupid, really bad James Bond game, Nightfire?
It was, Nightfire. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So for me, the soundtrack to Nightfire is like Thriller. And like Off the Wall.
Yeah. So that's when I remember. And then I think it's become, I one thing that we said, and I mentioned yacht rock. I want to be clear. We did not, we've been inventing genres completely independently. We've been effectively living under an internet rock. Like, I kind of knew what yacht rock was, but I'd never watched the stuff or listened to the shows or
I didn't know about it until like a couple months ago when Erica showed me. And then I was like, well, what the fuck? We've been doing this but poorly for like years.
Right, exactly.
We've just been doing a poor man's version. Like, how did I not know about this?
Yeah.
And then we even had the idea, we never did it because, again, we're fucking lazy and don't ever finish anything, but we had the idea of doing the reenactments.
Right.
And now I'm kind of glad we never did it because, again, it just would have been like...
It's just been, a poor man's yacht rock. We might still do it, though, but... So I just want to, I do want to say this is something that we devised completely independently, but I think the yacht rock comparison is helpful because I would say that we're maybe not as rigorous and scientific as the Beyond Yacht Rock guys are about the genre,
though.
But we're pretty damn close.
I wanted to be, but I cannot do anything. So
yeah, I can't imagine like the idea of coming up with
before I had the excuse, like I was like, oh, I'm busy. I haven't been doing shit for like 2 months, and I still have not gotten my shit together. So yeah, I'm just bad at things. Like, time to admit it. But I'm passionate.
Right. What I like to say about Jheri Curl music is, I mean, so ways that you can identify yacht rock. There are a couple of different ways. There's there are musical elements, there's personnel. You can do that with Jheri Curl music.
And we have been doing it. Like we just said how we weren't doing research, but I feel like our blog posts are pretty in-depth.
Yeah, I try to it's towing the line between like doing what I do for my Prince blog, which is like more serious, and goofing on old music videos from the early 80s, but I try to toe that line pretty evenly. So it's like I might think something is it might be funny, but I'm also going to tell you who was on it and when it came out, and I try to be pretty rigorous about it, at least considering that I throw together most of these posts in about an hour at tops. So there's some science to it and there's some art to it, and I also think I like to say that Jheri Curl music is like pornography. You know it when you see it. There's kind of just like, and for me, what it is this specific like synthesizer whine. Like when you hear a synthesizer go like wow, that's Jheri Curl music.
Yeah, it's
except it might not be, because that might just be Parliament. But I mean, if it's from the early 80s,
I think that like. A lot of elements of Jheri Curl June or Jheri Curl music really came from Parliament, especially Junie Morrison. Like Junie Morrison is kind of like a godfather, although he didn't make a lot of Jheri Curl music. He was definitely like a forefather of Jheri Curl music, because you can hear a lot of like his synthesizer sounds in what later became Jheri Curl music.
Right. Yeah, there's a little bit of P-Funk. Zap is a band that I would consider that kind of straddles the line between P-Funk and Jheri Curl music. There's a little bit of disco. But it can't be too disco. Right, exactly. Yeah.
And of course we'll give examples so that you know what the fuck we're, because right now we're like, it has to sound like this, but it can't be too much like it, which is like, okay. So what the fuck is it then?
Yeah. I think the whole impetus behind calling it Jheri Curl music is because this kind of music doesn't have, to me at least, it doesn't have a very satisfying genre designation in wide use. So like when we're talking about the artists that we talk about when we talk about Jheri Curl music, people might call it post-disco, or they might call it, pop funk, or they might call it boogie. Boogie is probably the best name we have for it right now. But even boogie, it was like, that came out of, I think, like the UK.
Yeah, boogie is like humble pie to me. Like,
yeah, exactly. When I think boogie, I'm thinking like
T-Rex,
a white guy with a beard and no shirt, playing like a
an organ.
Yeah, exactly. Fog hat. When I hear this music, I don't think boogie. I think glistening curls.
Yeah, like this music. The best way to describe it, I think, really, and it only works if you're like, what is it, like synesthetic?
Yeah,
or whatever the fuck I am.
We have a very specific hairstyle-based synesthesia. Is the first thing you should know about.
Yeah, like it literally sounds like what a Jheri Curl looks and feels like.
Right.
That's the only way to describe it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then just listen and we'll explain it to you.
It's like if you think of, and this is. This might be kind of racially charged, but if you think about like funk music as like an afro, it's like tight curls,
which I think is fair. That's like,
yeah, it's like very black and proud.
Everything we're talking about in this podcast is going to be problematic because we're two white kids from the Midwest talking about black music and trying to name it. So let's just admit that and go from there. So anyway, you were saying.
If funk music is an afro, and it's like, and the afro
and
was like
is
the hairstyle of the 70s, and it was about like conscious like Pan-Africanism, and it was also it was like kinky and natural and all of those other verbs that we attach the afro to it. The funk was like harder. It was tougher. It was less a little less urbane. A little less pop. And Jheri Curl music is. It's the curls are looser, and it's greasier. It leaves a residue on everything that it touches, and it's a little bit, it's a little bit like a blend between black and white music. And I think that's one of the things I like about the metaphor of a Jheri Curl is it's a hybrid hairstyle, and it's a hairstyle that I think gets a lot of kind of a lot of guff for. Almost being kind of an expression of self-hatred even. And so in a way, I like that we're, despite the problematicness of what we do, I like that we're kind of reclaiming it and making the Jheri Curl, framing it in a positive light. And we don't have to be ashamed of the Jheri Curl.
Right. Or like even just bringing it back to like yacht rock, like that music is music that people think is like corny and silly. Like I was just talking to someone the other day about Toto, and they were like, "Oh, they're just like a goofy band." And I was like, "No, they're like amazing musicians." Yeah. Like the reason that Thriller is good is because of Toto personnel.
Right.
And then I went on a fucking rant about it. But like, like that's kind of the same thing we're doing with Jheri Curl music. Like people look at it as like this goofy 80s music, but it's so good. Like we make fun of like the fashion and even like some of the songs, but I have like a deep respect and love for all of this music. Like it's my favorite type of music most of the time. Like I love Jheri Curl music, and that's why I want to make it a thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I would say that I can't focus on things that I hate with this much intensity, but we talk about Kiss all the time, so I can't even say that. So like, yeah. But just take my word for it that this is something I actually love.
And I also just want to say that, you know, the June thing, it's alliterative, which is, I mean, let's be real. That's cute. The real reason why we do it every June. But it's also like, this is perfect, like barbecue music. This is perfect, you know, rolling around with the windows down in your car music.
Perfect like, roller skating music.
Yeah. It's like all of your summer activities.
And it's so many people's birthday. It's Prince's birthday.
Right. Jesse Johnson from the time.
Who else? It's like everybody is in June. They're all
Jimmy Jam, also from the time, and also, you know, major producer. Yeah, we've been able to do a lot of, what's his name? L.A. Reid.
What's his name? like we were saying, we have a deep respect for these.
Yeah. A little known artist, L.A. Reid. So yeah, I mean that. So let's talk a little bit. So we've talked about the whole synesthetic element of it. Another thing I'll say is that, you know, when you say Jheri Curl music, people are like, they try to think of people who have Jheri curls, and I mean, there is inevitably some overlap between Jheri Curl music and music by people with Jheri curls.
But it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. And some of the most Jheri Curl music was made by people who did not have Jheri curls at the time, at least, or ever. You know, sometimes ever.
Although everybody on my essential list has a Jheri curl, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's the exceptions that prove the rules. So I mean, musically, I mean, I mentioned the like synthesizer whine. I think specifically, it's almost always an Oberheim synthesizer. That's what Prince used, and a lot of Jheri Curl music is basically just knockoff Prince. Like that. That's the idea behind it. You know, it's a very synth sounding synth. It sounds really kind of bright and electronic, and, you know, sort of it just isn't the same. And I think this is one reason why Jheri Curl music peaked in the early 80s, because later in the decade, when other synthesizers like the Fairlight and stuff like that came into vogue, it just doesn't have that sound. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why you see a decline later in the decade. So yeah, it's that specific kind of synthesizer. I would say, to me, I would actually go ahead and say that to be like perfect ideal Jheri Curl music, there can't be live horns. Sometimes you do get a mix. You get the synthesizer and the live horns, but to me, those are kind of like, those aren't ideal. Those aren't essential examples.
Yeah, I agree with that, because with the horns, it just sounds too much like disco.
Right.
And there has to be that clear line between disco and Jheri Curl music.
And the same thing is true of live strings too. You know,
I would say even live drums to a certain extent. Yeah. There's some like basically everything has to be robotic.
Right.
Like there's some Jheri Curl music that has live drums, so it's not as important. But I think that like the really like super regimented like drum beat like that Prince used, that is more important to me.
Yeah.
Than, what was I saying? I don't even remember what I was saying. Basically, it has to be fake everything. All the instruments have to be fake. Right.
A Jheri Curl is not a hairstyle that occurs in nature, so it makes sense that Jheri Curl music would not be anything, that occurs in nature. So synthesizers, a lot of the time synth drums. Again, I think equipment is important, although with drums not as important as with keyboards. Prince used the Lin LM1, and I think a lot of his imitators also use that drum machine, and so it kind of becomes an easy way to have like a Prince sound alike kind of feel. Guitars are very dry, not a lot of effects, really clean sounding, pretty muted, a little bit of like a James Brown, rhythm guitar feel, but like softer. It's hard to describe, but a little bit more, not as gritty as regular funk guitar.
Yeah, there would be like the little chicken scratch or whatever, but no like heavy guitar solos for the most part.
And then bass, same kind of thing. The bass is first of all not very high in the mix. No effects. It's you don't hear like big like Bootsy Collin type bass lines. Usually it's honestly almost part of the melodic content rather than like a really low end.
When Doves Cry is a pretty Jheri Curl song, and that doesn't have any bass on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think again, it's to me, it kind of like all comes back to Prince, which isn't entirely fair because there were other people who kind of did this music independently of him, but I think it's one of the easiest shorthands for Jheri Curl music is like if you just imagine like somebody trying to sound like Prince, especially on the 1999 album. That to me that's the easiest definition. But the important thing about this is that each of us put together a list of like 5 songs, Jheri Curl songs that we consider to be essential. So if you were to get started in this genre, these are the songs that you would want to listen to. And Prince isn't on Prince is not one of these essential songs. And the reason why is, to me, the kind of ideal of the genre came from cheap imitations of Prince, not from Prince himself. Prince was never really, he was always about doing his own thing, and he, was always kind of like skirting the edges of genres. And so he kind of put together these elements in a convenient way that other people could exploit and capitalize on. But to me, Oh Sheila by Ready for the World is a much more like perfect Jheri Curl song than anything that Prince did.
Like they always say, it's good for the geese, it's always good for the gander. Oh sailor.
Because it's borderline plagiarism. So you've got you've got the drums, the like LM1, processed drum machine. You've got that real clean bass that's not too low in the mix. You've got that the kind of muted chicken scratch guitar. And of course the synth hits, and that's Jheri Curl music.
And another important aspect of Jheri Curl music, which we kind of touched on, was the look too. Like, and it's not necessarily as important, but like most groups also looked pretty much like a ripoff of Prince from the like Purple Rain era. And that's definitely true of Ready for the World. Like, they have the exact same, like, Jheri Curl shape that Prince had. And Ready for the World is from Michigan, so.
Yeah, we have to give Michigan some love. And that's actually the hairstyle. That's an important point, because so Prince never actually had a Jheri curl per se. But
really?
but a Jheri curl, yeah, it was like I think it was just curled. It wasn't. He didn't have the activator in it.
Oh.
But a Jheri curl was
I could have sworn that was a Jheri curl.
just dropping. I'm just dropping facts today. But a Jheri curl was, I think, an accessible way for people who didn't have access to, the personal hairstylists that Prince had to kind of replicate that look, or whose hair was naturally, curlier than Prince's was, and they had to get it like chemically treated in some way.
Dang, this just opened up a whole, like, I thought he had a Jheri curl this whole time, but this like really like opens up the genre even more to me, because it's making those connections between the hairstyle and the musical style. So like, we're talking about how Prince, his like the people who were making Jheri curl music were kind of like a cheap imitation of Prince, and not only in their music but also in their hair. This is wild to me.
Yeah, I know. It's the perfect metaphor, because when somebody dresses up as Prince, like Purple Rain Prince for Halloween, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be wearing a Jheri curl wig, and because it's a cheap imitation.
Wow.
Oh, Sheila, let me love you till the morning comes. Oh, Sheila, you know I want to be the only one. Oh, Sheila, let me love you till the morning comes. Oh, Sheila, you know I want to be the only one. Here we go. Oh.
So why don't we do one of your essential?
All right, let me see. So the first one I have on my list is "Freakaholic" by the Egyptian Lover. He actually had a Jheri curl, right? As far as I can tell, I don't know.
That's the real thing. Yeah, that's definitely a Jheri curl.
Yeah. Jheri curl music was around when people started filming music videos. So it was kind of like, even though I don't think a lot of these groups, like made it to MTV because MTV is racist.
Yeah.
Like, image became really important, especially like a lot of people were following Prince, like we said. So like there's just like a gold mine of amazing Jheri curl music videos. Like, that's a lot of the reason why we have the blog to go along with it instead of just a playlist. And a lot of the blog posts are talking about the corresponding videos. And man, this video might be the best Jheri curl music video ever. Like, I don't think my life has been the same since I saw this video. Or discovered the Egyptian Lover in general, but I think that in many ways it really, like, exemplifies what Jheri curl music is both sonically and visually. Because, like, first of all, he's going with the whole, like, Egyptian theme at the beginning, but even in that, there's just, like, leopard print and, like he's driving around in a convertible, and then, like, he goes into this room, there's just, like, smoke everywhere, and balloons, and, like, these women wearing lingerie, which is very, like, Vanity 6. So, like, pretty much all the elements of Jheri curl music are in this video, and in the song, too.
Yeah, the Egyptian Lover is, I think he's obviously mostly remembered as a electro hip hop DJ and rapper producer, mostly DJ and producer. But I think he's so influenced by Prince that he kind of bridges the gap a little bit.
With
and
some
Freakaholic
songs.
is not really, I mean, it's sort of a hip hop song, but it's not really. It's like a really heavy electro funk kind of a
But it's very Jheri Curl. It's definitely his most Jheri Curl song, I would argue.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean also just the there is a strain of Jheri Curl music that is electro influenced. You got people like Daz Band and Midnight Star who were obviously listening to electro music and incorporating all kinds of sometimes like record scratches or like a really hip hop influenced beat. Songs like Freakazoid by Midnight Star or Joystick by Daz Band. And anytime a vocoder shows up, so there's definitely that strain of the music that I think Egyptian Lover is a really great example of.
Tell 'em what I special, there's no one like me. I'm kinda sweet, babe, like Susie Honey. I'm kinda rich, do you want all my dough? I'll buy you the world, just let me know, 'cause I'm your freakaholic. Tell 'em what I'm freakaholic. Oh girl, hit me. Freakaholic. Tell 'em what I'm
Plus, he's just hilarious. I love him. I follow him on Instagram, and it's just like for a while it was just like only pictures of food, and now he does other stuff. But like for a while it was just like wherever he traveled to, it would be like he's eating this.
He's always in Detroit.
Yeah,
too.
I saw him DJ back in September actually.
I saw him randomly in Tucson, Arizona, of all places, and it was amazing. It's still one of my favorite concerts.
So what was that concert like? Did he perform his own original stuff? Because when I saw him, first of all, it was a really cheap concert, but it wasn't really a concert. It was just a DJ set. So he was just like playing. He was just DJing pretty much. Like it wasn't any of his own music.
So mine, he claimed that he was just gonna DJ, but then he was like moved to start rapping. I don't know if that's true or not. I like to think it was. But yeah, he definitely performed his own songs. He performed,
right.
What is a DJ if he can't rap? He performed Egypt, obviously. It was great.
Well, I did not get that. But Detroit is obviously like a really electro. Actually, this weekend is Movement electronic music festival, and he was actually here last night with Dame Funk. So
cool, yeah.
I was sick and lame, and I don't have any money.
Yeah,
yeah. Must be nice.
And Detroit, I think, is a really important city in Jheri Curl music history because Electrifying Mojo was DJing on Detroit radio in the early 80s, and he was essential to breaking Prince in Detroit. He was essential to breaking, a lot of like early techno music, and that whole like sonic stew of like funk and electro and post disco dance music, all kind of, coalesced in Detroit in a way that obviously the main result was techno. But Jheri Curl music, I think, was a major market for that.
Yeah. I mean, like the scene is another really good
exactly.
visual
Yeah, the
example.
scene is a gold mine of Jheri Curl music visuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Dystopian Dance Party was a TV show, I would want it to be a cross between the scene and the Freakaholic video.
The Freakaholic video is nice too because there's nobody at the fucking party. It's him. What is it? It's him and then like the two dancing guys and then some women just like sitting there and like one is doing the dumb like Egyptian dances and like one other person and then a shit ton of balloons and that's the party. And it's at a Freakaholics Anonymous meeting, so like that seems like a pretty like
yeah, this is just it's a relapse,
right?
Yeah. I need it. I need it. Oh, girl.
All right, so my next essential Jheri Curl music track. I tried to choose mostly songs that we've talked. Well, actually, that's not true. This is the only one that we that I've written about before for Jheri Curl June. If you don't know, we basically every day in June, every weekday in June, we spotlight a particular Jheri Curl track, and this was one that I chose in our first year. And it still holds up. This is still one of the go-tos. It's Mtume, Juicy Fruit. I feel weird and kind of like out of step with my generation because I'm like I'm like the only person who, when that drum beat at the beginning comes on, in like a public place, I don't go, oh, it's Biggie. I go, oh, it's fucking Mtume. And I prefer Juicy Fruit to Juicy by the Notorious B.I.G. Sorry, I just do.
Yeah, I do too, but
there's also a really great instrumental, the After Six mix.
I think I prefer the After Six mix too.
Yeah. It's.
I just love that it's After Six. Like, what's like 6
time.
I know, like 6 is so early. Like 6 is like kids' bedtime.
Right.
Like after 8 is even a little bit too early. Like.
Yeah. I mean, they were obviously going for like an after dark kind of, because it's like it's just the drum beat and some like keyboards and stuff and like moaning.
Right.
But
so
but yeah, after
that
6
only works for like 3 months out the year or whatever.
I
After 6
routinely
in
have
January.
dinner after 6,
Right.
so yeah. it's lush. It's got this like tough, beat to it that's like enough. It's hard enough that you can write a rap song around it. But then you have, the keyboards and the bass and all of this other stuff is kind of softer and sensual, and it's sexy, and I think that's kind of an essential aspect of not all Jheri Curl music is sexy, but Juicy Fruit definitely is.
What Jheri Curl songs aren't sexy?
That's a good question. Well, actually. I might. My next song, anything by the Whispers.
But they're trying to be sexy. What Jheri Curl songs aren't intended to be sexy? I guess would be a better question.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair question, because that is kind of an important element of it. I mean, obviously, most R&B music is sexy to some extent, or sexual to some extent. But I definitely think, Jheri Curl music, it's for nightclubs, and it's for
after 6.
Exactly. It's put on your after 6 mix. Exactly.
I guess like the way I describe, and this doesn't really, I guess, go with all Jheri Curl music, but I don't know, maybe you'll disagree. Like, my favorite Jheri Curl music tends to like sound like a vagina, and I don't really know. Like, I'm just using a whole bunch of like weird metaphors that I don't know if people even understand. But
well, this is why it's taken us 5 years to like explain to people what Jheri Curl music is, because neither of us can articulate it. It sounds like a Jheri Curl.
It sounds like you know how your vagina feels on the inside. Like what? If you listen to a lot of Prince's music, like his synthesizer has like this kind of like prissy sound to it, but there's also like a smoothness to it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it just sounds like a vagina.
Yeah, it sounds wet.
Yeah.
Or moist.
Wet and silky.
Yeah.
So either Jheri Curl or vagina.
And there are two things that I think of.
Warm, wet, and silky. See, it's like you blindfold someone and you which one is this, a Jheri Curl or vagina?
Both are equally sexy, so
somewhere told me this about you. They say you're a heartbreaker, you just can't be true. I don't care what those other people say. I'm gonna love you anyway. Sweet baby.
So yeah, I picked Heartbreaker parts 1 and 2 by Zap.
Mm-hmm. It gets a lyrical. The Jheri Curl gets a lyrical shot.
Yeah, and that's important. And also, this is just like, it just is very Jheri. I guess a lot of mine, I'm looking at my list, a lot of mine tend to be more on like the electro side. Mm-hmm. And of course, Zap's like whole thing was the talkbox that Roger Troutman used, so like that was their sound, which I feel like then became electro in a lot of ways. But Roger Troutman was a pioneer in that, of course, so like shout out to the, like, it actually mentions Jheri Curl in the lyrics.
kisses on that sexy Jheri Curl.
And it has like a horny robot, which shows up in a lot of Jheri Curl music, especially in the like electro field of Jheri Curl music. And like the beginning is kind of like this almost like ethereal synthesizer intro, which again is very Jheri.
Right.
It almost like, I always imagine it like it's a close-up of a Jheri Curl and you don't really know what it is yet, and it's like lit so that you can like see like the different curls, like the lighting is just like kind of bouncing off the curls, and then it's like rotating, and the camera like zooms out and it's a guy with a Jheri Curl. That's how I imagine.
Like, yeah, right when the bass comes in, it's like a crash zoom out.
Yeah, and then like the light is like from like, you know how you can light photographs and like one light will be like a purple light and one will be like a pink light, and so like you have this like interesting play of lighting. That's how it's like a purple and pink light reflecting off the Jheri Curl. That's my visualization of this song.
Well, one thing I will, I don't know if we're gonna do it this year, partly because I'm running out of material and partly because I'm lazy. But for the past couple of years, we've done videos, like trailers for Jheri Curl June, and the visual aesthetic, like the perfect visual aesthetic, are Jheri Curl, like commercials for Jheri Curl products from the 80s. There's the famous one with Ola Ray, and there's some great stuff if you look on YouTube, but unfortunately, I think we're scratching the bottom of the barrel of at least what I've been able to find and plagiarize, basically. But yeah, like if you ever want to just put the Soul Glow commercial from Coming to America on a loop and just turn the sound down and listen to this music, and it's the perfect visual accompaniment.
I agree. Just
like people running their hands through each other's Jheri Curls, and like the like backlight on the hair, and yeah, it's the perfect kind of that and like Blade Runner neon. those are the two visuals that I like to. One thing that's kind of interesting, Zap 3, the album that Heartbreaker is from, came out 1983. Oh Sheila's from 85. That makes sense. Juicy Fruit, though, is from 83. And this next song, another essential for me, Keep On Lovin' Me by The Whispers, also 1983. I kind of think 1983 might be, at least for me personally, I think that might be the golden year for Jheri Curl.
Yeah, I think so too.
I would say just in general, like the songs that are like slam dunk, like this is Jheri Curl music. I have the best batting average 1981 to 83, 84, sometimes as late as 85, but it was getting a little long in the tooth at that point. And I think 83 is like the sweet spot. That's when Prince was starting to cross over, but hadn't crossed over so much that he was like too much in the pop world. Like he was still very much an R&B artist at that point. that's when Thriller came out. So like the music is starting to get a mainstream momentum, but it still hasn't, totally crossed over, and you're still getting, groups that are kind of coming, up from the bottom with new styles. The Whispers is not one of those groups, by the way. The Whispers is actually a good example of a group that pre-existed Jheri Curl music, but adopted it really, really well. They were together since the late 60s.
And they're still fucking together.
They're still together now, yeah.
And there's only one dude in the band who died.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest one, which is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I don't know what their secret is, but yeah, they're still going strong, and their first album came out in 1970. So, I don't know when the exact moment that they went Jheri Curl is, but by the time that their album Love for Love came out, that is, just listen to Keep on Loving Me. It's got the the high little synthesizers, that whole like it's everything about it. And the other thing I will say about this song, the song is great. The thing that really makes it essential is the video. Oh my God, the video is so good.
I'll say too, Whispers videos just across the board are the fucking shit.
Yeah.
like this video is great, but wait until you see Rocksteady. I think I talked about this when I actually wrote about Rocksteady, but the first time I saw it, I was just kind of like, I was going to Wayne State and I was in the library and I was just trying to like find stuff to write about, so I was just looking up things. I either looked up the Whispers on YouTube or I like came across them in related videos. Mm-hmm. And I was in the library, so there was no sound on the computer. The best way to view Rocksteady by the Whispers is with no sound on. Like, at least the first time you watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it with no sound. You're welcome. And then also be in a setting where you can't like laugh loudly. Like,
right. So you just have to keep it like suppressed. Just like silent laughing.
Yeah, I was like thrashing around. I like, when you laugh and you like cannot contain yourself. Like the first time I saw that video, I was in a library, so I couldn't do it, but it was the kind of laughing where you just like get up and run away.
Yeah.
I could not take it.
That means I'll never give up another this good to be. Just keep on loving me. Keep on.
Another thing I can say about the Whispers. So we've talked a little bit about like key players in Jheri Curl history, Jheri Curl story, if you will. And, obviously there's Prince. Obviously there's Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones by extension, and, Egyptian Lover. But to me, it's like some of the architects include Solar Records, which is, that was the Sound of Los Angeles. It was the Soul Train's record label that put out, they were obviously, they were pretty important to disco, but they were even more important, at least, closer to my heart, in creating this post-disco Jheri Curl music. And Leon Silvers III produced Love for Love by the Whispers. All different kinds of bands. SOS Band was another one. So in the past for Jheri Curl June, I've written like longer articles about people that I consider to be the architects. We wrote about Prince, we wrote about Michael Jackson, Jimmy Jam and Lewis, Babyface and L.A. Reid. And I don't know if I'm going to do it this year, but maybe I will. Maybe I will do it this year. I think it might be Solar Records time or the Silvers or somebody in that whole scene, because I think that was a little more behind the scenes than some of the other artists we've talked about, but a really important aspect of the sound.
I mean, this one is just kind of self-explanatory. Like, I feel like the time was a little bit more Jheri Curl than Prince. Like you've definitely talked about this in your blog about Prince, that like, and I think it's pretty much common knowledge that like the time was Prince's side project, basically, to like stay in the R&B charts and experiment more with like R&B music. And so of course like Jheri Curl music never totally crossed over to a certain extent, and so like obviously the time would be more Jheri Curl than Prince. And Morris had an actual Jheri Curl, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was like a, it was like a professional. It was like a business Jheri Curl, kind of like.
Wait, did he? No, I'm looking up pictures.
Oh, maybe not.
Maybe he just always had like. No.
I think he might have just used a lot of products.
Yeah. Well, Jesse Johnson for damn sure had a Jheri Curl.
Oh yeah, Jesse Johnson. Yes. Yeah.
Why was I remembering
Jesse
Morris
Johnson
as
is like if Prince had a Jheri Curl, that's Jesse Johnson. Like.
Right. Jungle Love to me is like, it's kind of like the accumulation of what Jheri Curl always wanted to be. That's how I would describe Jungle Love.
Yeah.
It's just like so like super produced and like hard. It's almost like hard Jheri Curl. For some reason it has like, it's almost like more funky, but because it's so synthesized, it still is in the Jheri Curl region. But
yeah, well, I mean, all I know is that just like completely serendipitously, I've had the bass line from Jungle Love stuck in my head for like the last 3 days. So
Jungle Love is my fucking shit. Like,
it's really good, and it's always it's great because it's like it was in Purple Rain, so it was a pretty big hit. So you hear it in grocery stores and stuff. Like.
Jesse, give me one of them sexy sodas right in. Break it down. Yes.
But yeah, I definitely think this is it's live band Jheri Curl, because I think I'm thinking about
The Bird.
I'm thinking about The Bird. Yeah, is actually a live recording. But I do think that I think that is Jesse Johnson playing the guitar solo. Usually the time it's Prince playing pretty much everything, Morris on drums. But I think that by Ice Cream Castle they were doing, they were playing their own instruments a little bit more. So yeah, I think of the time as a little more of like a live band than a lot of these other groups, but they're still definitely in the same realm,
right?
And
that's kind of what makes it harder too, is the guitar. So I guess this would be an example of how you can go a bit harder but still be like firmly planted in Jheri Curl territory.
Right, yeah. But Jesse Johnson had some really his solo music is, it basically just sounds like the time, and it's more it's very Jheri. So if you like Jungle Love, and Jesse wrote Jungle Love, so if you like Jungle Love, then you'll like his solo albums.
I really like Jesse Johnson's solo albums.
Yeah. Especially, I think the first one.
The first one's really good and is also an example of all the different kinds of Jheri curls you can have if you look on the back. If I'm remembering correctly, I think I talked about this in my post.
Yeah.
And that you find that in a lot of Jheri curl music, where you look at the back of the album cover and it has all the personnel, and it's like different forms that Jheri curls can take.
Yeah, I've got another album, a song coming up where the album honestly looks like a barbershop lookbook from 1985. Like it's pretty amazing. But first, I'm going to talk about a man who never had a Jheri curl, actually, although he had many other dramatic hairstyles. Rick James.
Sexy, sexy, sexy. Sexy, sexy, sexy. Who do you, girl, who do you belong to? My point of view is, girl, I think you're hot. If we talked, what words could I describe? There's no dictionary book to explain how you look. Girl, I think you're so sexy, sexy, sexy. Cold blooded. What more can I say? Sexy, sexy, sexy.
So Street Songs is one of my favorite albums, but it's like sort of Jheri curl. I mean, we talked about this before. Like, if you have live horns, it's kind of you're treading into the like disco and funk territory, depending on which way you go. And so Street Sounds is like it's a little more like an evolved P-funk to me, with obviously a little bit of Prince and that and new wave and stuff thrown in. To me, when Rick James at his most Jheri curl was Cold Blooded, which is 100% just drum machine and keyboard, and then I think a little bit of like bass, and he wrote it in like 20 minutes, just like crapped it out on the keyboard, and
it's my favorite fucking Rick James song.
It's so good. It is so good, and something about that, like just the like brittle minimalism. To me, not all Jheri curl music has to be minimalistic and spare and sparse, but I think a lot of the best is. And that is what I like. I like how the mix is so sparse that you can just like you can hear every separate track. You can hear the bass perfectly. You can hear the synthesizer perfectly. It's like there's so much space in the mix, which to me feels that that's kind of something that I like in Jheri Curl music, at least.
Too much, baby. You're so hot, you burn me out. Just burn me up. Baby, 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 baby. Don't be so cold-blooded. Ooh, la, 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 la. Who do you, girl, who do you belong to? My point of view is, girl, I think you're hot. If we talked, what words could I describe? There's no dictionary book to explain how you look. Girl, I think you're so sexy, sexy, sexy. Cold-blooded in my dictionary. Sexy, sexy, sexy. Cold-blooded.
Going back to his actual hairstyle.
You know what? I just found a picture of Rick James with a Jheri Curl, but it's later though. It's not at the time of Cold-Blooded. He kind of had it was definitely a curl, but it doesn't look wet to me.
That was like his Rolf period, right?
Yeah,
where he
it was-
looked like
yeah.
Rolf the Muppet Dog.
But I think it definitely wonderful. It's definitely sort of it's at least like laid. Yeah, no, that's a Jheri Curl for wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like a real loose one. Being experts in this genre has also vastly improved our expertise in black hair. So we could basically open beauty salons if we wanted to.
Like Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah, exactly.
But we both have Jheri Curls. Speaking of wigs and Jheri Curls, do you remember when we were in Los Angeles and we went to that like costume store and they had
the wet style
wig.
wig. I guess Jheri must be like, it must be trademarked or something.
Wet style.
So hopefully we don't get caught and we have to do it has to be wet style June from now.
What month can we do? I guess we could do it the whole winter.
It'd have to be a wet style Wednesdays or something.
So the Deal, I feel, is Essential Jheri Curl. That's the group that Ellie Reed and Babyface were in. I love the Deal. There's not really too much to say about Material Things. That's the song I chose from the album Material Things. It's really just like the album cover again, like the visuals are important for Jheri Curl music. And also it has that like it basically sounds like an alternate to Freakazoid by Midnight Star. It's the exact same beat. And it was Solar Records too, so like basically stuff we've already talked about.
Yeah, the Deal looked like if Prince and the Revolution
were ugly,
like from Dave Chappelle's show. If that was the real Prince and the Revolution, that's they would be the Deal.
I just kind of like stumbled upon them pretty much. And I didn't even realize who they were until much later.
Which makes them a better discovery in a way. Like it's not like you're like, oh, I love LaFace Records. Let me see how it all started.
Right. It's like I found out about the deal and I was like, oh, this band rules. And then I'm literally like, that's L.A. Reid.
Right. Right. And that's honestly like, this is tangential, but Jheri Curl music is some of my favorite music to dig for it at record stores because it's always dirt cheap because nobody, like it's just, I mean, most of it is crap, because it's like just mass produced R&B music from a decade that is not well loved. It edits, like a lot of it is very generic. Most people are going to buy a couple of Prince and Jam and Lewis records and call it a day. But for the connoisseur, it's plentiful, it's cheap, and even if the music sucks, the covers are just like amazing.
And even if the music sucks, it still doesn't. In my
exactly,
opinion,
it's like yeah,
the shittiest Jheri Curl music is still pretty fucking good.
Yeah, exactly. There's a guy that I'm gonna write about this year called Giorgio, where I was just like looking through the R&B section. I come across, I'd never heard of him before, but I see him and I'm like, okay, this looks like it's gonna be pretty Jheri, And so I try it. I listened to it. I was like, yes, this is good. And I just like took, there were like 2 or 3 7-inch or 12 inches and a full length album. They were all like $2-3. I just took the whole stack and bought it right there. Like I cleaned out their Giorgio section. And that's not an unusual story.
Yeah.
Like there's always some really great finds.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I ever buy when I go to record stores is partly because it's like the only thing I can afford a lot of the time.
Yeah, we're having this vinyl boom where, like all of a sudden these used classic rock records are getting really expensive. And, like I've found this because like I've been trying really hard to find a copy of Eliminator by ZZ Top and I cannot find any fucking used copies of it, or like, copies that I do find are way more expensive than I would have thought Eliminator by ZZ Top would have been. But that boom has not occurred in the Jheri Curl market. So
maybe we'll be the catalyst for that once we finally
yeah.
make
And if
Jheri
we
Curl
are,
music.
I apologize, but for right now, it's definitely sub $5 a lot of the time, unless you're talking like Prince.
Yeah.
It's time that we get our values straight. 'Cause with material things, I just can't relate. It's all about being happy, baby. Everybody say, material things, baby. Can't buy my love. Material things, baby. Can't buy my love.
So this is my last song, but I'm going out on a high note. I think that just another one of the architects that I haven't gotten around to talking about for Jheri Curl June officially. I mean, we've highlighted a couple of their songs actually, but I haven't given them like a special, write up, like a long form article. But I think the Calloway brothers are super important. These are another pair that you see just showing up in credits all over the place. They were members of Midnight Star, and then they ended up going solo. One of the best, I think, late period Jheri Curl songs is I Want to Be Rich, because it came out in 1990, but their sound had not evolved at all. Like it could have easily come out in 1985. They wrote and produced for Climax and The Deal and The Whispers, all kinds of bands. And there's just something, it all sounds like Midnight Star. Like no matter who they're writing for, it sounds like their own music. And the song that I chose is one that I haven't written about yet, but it's Midas Touch from 1985.
The Midas touch, 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 touch.
Touch, 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 touch. Touch, 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 touch.
You say you're going through changes. Every day it seems your life is up and down. And you say that you're looking for an answer. Everywhere you look, it seems it can't be found. Like searching, trying to find a rainbow. No one's ever found the treasure's told to be. But if you're looking for a lover, everything you need you can find right here in me. I've got the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. Oh, sugar. I've got the Midas touch. Baby, let me touch your body and your soul.
And that's from Headlines, which it has to be a pun. The title has to be a pun because it's called Headlines, and the cover is 3 lines of heads, like just headshots. And this is the one that looks like a lookbook from a barbershop in 1985. Like it's like you could just like take in your copy of Headlines by Midnight Stars, probably not to a barbershop, but definitely to like a beautician, and be like, give me the Reggie Calloway or it's just like there's nothing necessarily. I think this is an example of a later Jheri Curl song that still it doesn't sound like house, and it doesn't sound like New Jack Swing. It's not like on the way to becoming something. It's just sort of like the peak of that genre's progression. Like it's the arrangement is fuller. It sounds glossier and more expensive, but it's still the same music that Midnight Star were making in 1983. It's just
I guess kind of like the Times Jerk Out in a way.
Right.
Where it's
right.
like
yeah.
it's later in the era, but it sounds like it could be on the same album as Jungle Love. Like it sounds exactly the same.
Right.
I've got the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. Oh, sugar. I've got the Midas touch. Baby, let me touch your body and your soul.
Touch, 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 touch.
The Midas touch, touch, touch.
My last song is Don't Fight the Feeling by One Way. Partly because I wanted to give a shout out to a Detroit group. And also just because this song kind of really shows off how important Jheri Curl music was to the inception of G-Funk. Too Short sampled this in the 80s, and then it's since been sampled by so many people. Like DJ Quick also sampled it, but it was originally a One-Way song from 81, I think. There were just so many G-Funk songs that borrowed from Jheri Curl. Even a lot of G-Funk is Zap influenced and sample Zap, and you can find Jheri Curl samples in G-Funk more than any other type of music. I think more of the gangster rap, because it was all West Coast. More of the gangster rap was sampling Parliament and stuff, but G-Funk in particular was definitely all Jheri Curl music. If you go through a DJ Quick album, it will pretty much all be Jheri Curl samples.
And once again, going from the figurative Jheri Curl to the literal Jheri Curl, Compton was where Jheri Curls went to die. They were rocking Jheri Curls for way longer than anybody else. So yeah, I think the Jheri Curl music G-Funk connection is definitely a valid one.
Don't you fight it, what you wanna do? Don't fight it. Don't you fight it. Give it to me, set it out. 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 Is it a party over here? Party over here. Is it a party over there? Party over here. Is it a party right here? Party right here. Is it a party over there? Party over here. Where's the party? The party right here. Party over here. It's a party over there. Party over here. It's a party right there. Party over here. It's a party over here. Don't you down. Don't you fight it, do it. Don't you fight it. Don't you fight it, do it. Don't you fight it.
So if you're just discovering this and you're still I hope that it's clear what Jheri Curl music is, because we just talked about it for an hour. But if you're still
If you're still not sure
confused,
why it sounds like a vagina.
Yeah. then there's a lot of material for you to check out, and we're gonna keep doing Jheri Curl music, Jheri Curl June, basically until
we die.
Until somebody physically stops us, or until it catches on. So you can just do us all a favor and just get into it now and save us all the years of toil.
Make our lives,
put us out of our misery,
worthwhile. Like,
exactly.
Just let us have one thing that's successful.
Yeah, get that Jheri Curl June hashtag trending, and yeah, just do it.
Please.
That kind of segues. We still have a magazine out. It's about Prince, so relevant. You can find it on blurb.com. Just search Dystopian Dance Party.
It's also available at Detroit Threads in Hampshire, if you're in the Detroit area. And the original painting that I did for the cover is available there at Detroit Threads. So you can walk in and buy it.
Exactly.
And then I can afford more tattoos. So
right. That's very important. And you can find us on social media, Dystopian Tweets on Twitter, Dystopian Dance Party on Tumblr, Dystopian Dance Party on Facebook, and Dystopian Graham on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at ZC Hoskins, ZCHOSKINS.
I am Nazpuller on everything at NAZZPULLER on Twitter and on Instagram. I pretty much just post a ton of shit about my cats. But on Twitter, I feel like I'm funny and underappreciated, so you should go follow me on Twitter.
I finally cracked 300 followers the other day. I'm actually at 301 as we speak, and I can't wait to see that number go down.
I cracked a whole 100.
Yeah.
Finally cracked 100 after like 2 years. Nobody gives a fuck about my Twitter.
I'm really just trying to get to the point where I have an audience large enough to alienate. Like, that is my only goal. It's really just so I can build up an audience and then just piss them off. So if you want that to happen, then, follow us on Twitter, because we'll definitely do it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll make good on our side of the bargain.
Yeah,
I promise.
I have alienated so many people on my Instagram just because, like, especially if you're a man and you come in my DMs, like, I'm not going to be nice to you.
Right. Yeah, we're both emotionally unstable, so
yeah, it's just a fun time all around.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, like, we will fight about something.
Yeah. All right, thank you for listening. Happy Jheri Curl June, and we'll be back in July. We don't have a cute name for July, but we will be reading another book, the Return of Dystopian Book Club.
Oh my God.
If you're listening on YouTube and you're a fan of our rock biographies, we're going to read David Lee Roth's biography.
I'm so excited.
Greatest, I think it's a Pulitzer winning, I'm assuming. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm assuming it is. It's going to be great. And if you want to make this a real real book club, you can start reading it now and like send us some questions, and we will we can discuss. So
actually, yeah, I would love that. Like, yeah, we should interact with our audience more, probably.
We should.
It would help if we had a fucking audience to interact with.
Yeah.
It's
other than just telling YouTube commenters to go fuck themselves. That's my main interaction with my audience.
You know what though? They're assholes though. That's not even our fan base. That's just like people who hate us.
Right. Who hate us but still feel the need to listen to all of our content.
Yeah.
It's really weird. But anyway.
So maybe those are our fans.
Yeah. If you want to start reading "Crazy from the Heat" by David Lee Roth, send us your comments, send us your questions, and we will discuss it in July. Until then, thanks for listening. Bye bye.
All the girls, they just love me. Come on, but my Jheri girl's greasy. All the girls, they just love me. What? But my Jheri girl's greasy. All
Thanks again for listening. But before we go, I need to announce the winners of our little contest for free copies of Dystopian Dance Party magazine, the print issue, and a couple of otherwise Kickstarter exclusive pieces of swag. So I've chosen two people. The first is from Twitter, Suzanne A, whose handle is at Sushi. So Suzanne A from Twitter, and from Tumblr we've got Marcel G. And Marcel G looks, if I'm interpreting this correctly, looks like they joined Tumblr just to reblog our posts. So obviously they deserve it. So Suzanne A and Marcel G, get in touch with us through whatever medium you prefer. You can either contact us on social media or email us at, you can email me at zach@dystopiandanceparty.com. Let me know where to send the magazine, and I will be glad to do so. Thanks for listening, and keep your eye on dystopiandanceparty.com. All this month, we've got a lot of cool stuff planned. Bye-bye.
Drip. Drop. Damn, boy. You got to drip.